The Scandalous Life of John Quincy Adams, 10 Shocking Facts. John Quincy Adams, the sixth President of the United States, is often remembered as a brilliant diplomat and a staunch opponent of slavery. However, his life was far from a straightforward tale of virtue and success. Adams's career was marked by controversies, intrigues, and personal dramas that have fascinated historians for centuries. From his unconventional youth to his controversial decisions as president, Adams's story is filled with surprising twists and scandals. Fact number 1. A youth of rebellion and tragedy. John Quincy Adams, born on July 11, 1767, in Braintree, Massachusetts, was thrust into the tumultuous world of politics from an early age. His father, John Adams, was a central figure in the American Revolution and the second President of the United States, while his mother, Abigail Adams, was known for her intellect and advocacy for women's rights. As a teenager, John Quincy accompanied his father to Europe in 1778, experiencing the upheavals of the American and French revolutions firsthand. He was tutored in Paris and attended Leiden University in the Netherlands, exposed to the liberal ideals and political ferment of the age. Despite his privileged background, Adams often rebelled against his father's strict puritanical upbringing, asserting his independence early on. His marriage to Louisa Catherine Johnson in 1797, a British-born woman of Catholic descent, was viewed with suspicion and disdain in a young America wary of British influence and Catholicism. The couple's personal life was marked by tragedy, including the deaths of their sons George Washington Adams, who drowned under mysterious circumstances in 1829, and John Adams II, who died of alcoholism at age 31 in 1834. These losses haunted Adams, contributing to his often dour and melancholic demeanor. Number 2. Accusations of a Bargain and Corruption. The corrupt bargain of 1824 remains one of the most controversial events in American political history. The election featured four main candidates: Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, William H. Crawford, and Henry Clay. Jackson won the most popular votes and electoral votes but failed to secure a majority, sending the decision to the House of Representatives. Henry Clay, the Speaker of the House, threw his support behind Adams, who then won the presidency. Shortly after, Adams appointed Clay as his Secretary of State, sparking accusations of a corrupt deal. Jackson's supporters were outraged, claiming Adams had promised Clay the position in exchange for his support. Adams consistently denied any underhanded agreement, stating, "There was no bargain, corrupt or otherwise." However, the scandal tainted his presidency from the outset, leading to significant political opposition and contributing to his defeat by Andrew Jackson in the 1828 election. Number 3. A bold abolitionist in a hostile Congress. After his presidency, John Quincy Adams returned to public service as a congressman, representing Massachusetts from 1831 until his death in 1848. Known as Old Man Eloquent, Adams became a fierce critic of slavery, repeatedly challenging the gag rule adopted by the House in 1836, which prohibited discussion of slavery. In one of his most audacious acts, he presented a petition from enslaved people seeking their freedom, igniting a firestorm in Congress. Southern legislators accused him of fomenting insurrection and attempted to censure him. Adams, undeterred, defended himself with his characteristic sharp wit and deep knowledge of parliamentary procedure, saying, "I speak for the slaves of America, who have no voice of their own." His persistence helped eventually repeal the gag rule in 1844, cementing his legacy as a staunch defender of free speech and abolition. Number 4. The Secret Diaries of John Quincy Adams. Throughout his life, John Quincy Adams maintained a diary that eventually spanned 68 years and 51 volumes, providing an unparalleled glimpse into the inner workings of a political figure of his era. He began writing at age 12 and continued until his death in 1848, meticulously documenting his thoughts, opinions, and daily activities. These diaries reveal his unvarnished views of political contemporaries, such as Andrew Jackson, whom he called a barbarian who could scarcely spell his name, and Thomas Jefferson, whom he criticized as a hypocrite who feigned humility. Adams also expressed complex feelings about his father, grappling with both admiration and resentment. The posthumous publication of his diaries caused a sensation, exposing political secrets and rivalries that had been hidden for decades, and forever altering the public perception of early American politics. Number 5. A duelist in the making? John Quincy Adams nearly faced a duel with John Randolph of Roanoke, a firebrand congressman known for his provocative rhetoric. In 1826, Randolph accused Adams and Henry Clay of bargain and corruption during the House election of 1824, calling them a coalition of base men. Adams, who prided himself on his integrity, was incensed and reportedly prepared to accept a challenge to a duel. Despite Adams's hot temper and willingness to defend his honor, cooler heads ultimately prevailed, and the confrontation was avoided. This incident highlighted Adams's intense personality and his readiness to confront personal attacks directly, a stark contrast to the more decorous behavior expected of politicians of his time. Number 6. The mysterious case of the Amistad. In 1841, Adams represented the African captives aboard the Spanish schooner Amistad before the U.S. Supreme Court. The captives, led by Singby P. Sink, had taken control of the ship after being illegally transported as slaves. Adams, then 73 years old, took the case, arguing passionately for their freedom, asserting that they had been kidnapped and had a right to resist unlawful bondage. His argument was as much a moral plea as a legal one, invoking the principles of the Declaration of Independence and calling slavery a stain upon the national honor. The court ruled in favor of the captives, a landmark decision in the fight against slavery. Although Adams was celebrated by abolitionists, his involvement drew fierce criticism from pro-slavery factions, branding him as a radical willing to undermine national unity. Number 7. The failed meteorological project. Adams was a passionate advocate for scientific advancement, proposing in 1825 the establishment of a national astronomical observatory and a network of weather stations, ideas that were decades ahead of their time. However, his political opponents ridiculed these proposals, calling them extravagant and wasteful. His vision was lampooned in the press as a lighthouse in the sky, a symbol of his perceived detachment from practical governance. Adams believed these initiatives would benefit navigation, commerce, and agriculture, reflecting his interest in using science to improve society. Unfortunately, his forward-thinking ideas were dismissed, and the project was never realized, showcasing the challenges of introducing progressive policies in a conservative political climate. Number 8. An unorthodox baptismal theory. Late in life, Adams delved into theological debate, controversially questioning the traditional Christian view of baptism. In letters to friends and religious figures, Adams argued that immersion in water was not a necessary component for a valid sacrament, a position at odds with the dominant doctrines of his time. His views drew sharp criticism from religious authorities, who saw his stance as heretical. Despite the backlash, Adams remained unapologetic, reflecting his lifelong tendency to challenge convention and authority in both religion and politics. Number 9. Allegations of a British spy. Throughout his career, Adams was dogged by accusations that he harbored sympathies for Britain, or worse, that he might be a spy. His extended stays in Europe, fluency in French and other languages, and friendships with foreign dignitaries made him a target for such suspicions. His critics often cited his time as U.S. minister to the Russian court under Tsar Alexander I as proof of his un-American loyalties. While no evidence ever substantiated these claims, they persisted in the popular imagination, contributing to the view of Adams as a man whose complex international ties made him an outsider in American politics. Number 10. A peculiar post-presidency obsession with fitness. John Quincy Adams was known for his commitment to physical fitness, an unusual trait among political figures of his era. Well into his later years, Adams maintained a rigorous routine, famously swimming naked in the Potomac River nearly every morning, regardless of the weather. His habit of skinny dipping drew both admiration and mockery, and it even led to a notable encounter in 1825 when journalist in Royal reportedly came across him during one of his swims. To secure an interview, Royal is said to have sat on his clothes until Adams agreed to answer her questions, a story that only added to his reputation for eccentricity. However, rumors circulated that his peculiar habits extended beyond his morning swims. There were whispers that Adams, in his dedication to fitness, occasionally walked through the halls of the White House in the nude, believing that exposure to fresh air was beneficial to his health. While these rumors were never substantiated, they were eagerly spread by his political enemies and detractors, who found in them further evidence of his unconventional and unpredictable nature.